Not really used to doing all this, but we're going to give it a shot. A little while back, we were kind of sitting around for the Mother's Day breakfast, and Stephanie, Ricky, and Tara, and Savannah were all sitting around and started talking about a couple of things, money, and said, hey, you ought to do this for your little side gig. And that's like, well, I'd think about all that, but it's one of those things that I've always, kind of been a little bit decent with money, and we were kind of just looking over some, what needs could be out there that could be really kind of around what the youth could be utilizing. So, kind of going through all this, and we were putting all of it together. Really a couple of the Bible verses that really struck out with me, and this was out of Proverbs. It said, "In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish man devours all that he has," which is, kind of a take on savings. And then the next, kind of dealing with loans, or the way I view it as loans anyway, it's the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. So as we go through this, that's a lot of the stuff that you're going to kind of be the general theme of what we have. I will say, everybody, there should be little pamphlets. You can go along and take notes on them. They're yours to take home with you. In the very back, there's a notes page. So if you need to have extra notes, it's not quite in the very back, but it's, toward the end, you'll see there's a notes page for you. And, if anybody has got any questions, if I get to going too fast, please just stop me. Ask any questions. I'll give you the best answer I can. May not be, may not know it, and if I don't, I'll go back and research it and try to help you with it. So kind of going on up some other things too is leaving my cell phone number and email address. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to text me. I would say call me, and if you will, before you call me, send me a little message. If I don't have a number stored in my phone, I'm not going to answer it. So send me a message first. Say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about such and such, and I'll call you back. Or send me an email. And then the other thing too, kind of for the folks that are doing the watching through live stream, we're passing around the pamphlets here. If you're interested in it, if you would just in the comments or something, I don't know if we can have access to that afterwards, but leave your email address in the comments and I'll email you the presentations so that you can, and I've got two versions of it. One version is going to be for just strictly what my PowerPoints are, and the other one's got my notes in it. So, and it's, we may have some things in there that we don't talk about, but it'll have all my notes that I kind of wanted to go over. So, a couple of other little quick things too. This is not going to be a get-rich-quick class. Through all of this, if it's anything, it'll be a get-rich very, very slowly class. So so kind of like what we're going to talk about here is a lot of investing, a lot of saving, that sort of thing. I'm not a financial advisor, financial planner, financial accountant. This is just stuff that we've picked up over the years, and just trying to learn from my mistakes. Not going to be here trying to sell you anything. It's just like purely educational. So anything that I tell you here, here again, I'll answer any question you have, but just really want to make sure that you do your own research and anything that you try to do when it comes to financial matters. Tara and I, we're not rich, far from it, but we've got certain plans where we were trying to go through and get ready to retire, and what we wanted to really try to do is just help people avoid the same mistakes that we did. So here again, just if you have any questions, just feel free to email me or call me. Now, so we'll kind of open up in a word of prayer, so if you would just pray with me. Thank you, Lord, for this day and the people that are gathered here. Bless this time that we have together to learn how to be better stewards with the funds that you provide to us. Give me the words and the ability to convey my thoughts in an impactful way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, like I said, kind of when we were going through this, and y'all bear with me, I'll get better as this kind of goes along. But when we were going through this, there is very little, if any, teaching of this in the school level. And it just blows my mind that there's, the stuff that we are teaching kids today, they just really come out of high school or whatever and are just totally not prepared to start saving for their future and anything in that regard. And they are, and it's the sad part about it is that is the time that people need to be doing it. The sooner you can start these processes, the better off you'll be. And you want to really want to try to get to this before life starts happening with people. Personal examples of this, we're going to talk about some terms, but there's some things that kind of happened, when we were growing up trying to figure out what we're going to do. There's some like Roth IRA, for example, and I'm going to go in depth of what that is. But that kind of got brought onto the stage in 1998. Well, in 1998, I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. Didn't care what a Roth was. Nobody was going to explain to me what it was. It was, all I knew to do was to try to get to work and save and put into my 401k. That was it. And kind of my parents really didn't teach us anything about investing, didn't know anything about it. Dad was primary homemaker or primary provider, really raising 3 kids. Mom was home parent. We didn't have any money to invest, and they kind of scared us out of investing, so to speak. It was like, I can remember the comments from my dad was, don't invest anything in the stock market unless you're prepared to lose it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And it was much harder then. I think kind of what I remember back during that time, you could have, the minimum you had to get started was like $10,000. You couldn't do anything unless you had a lot of money starting with. So, by the time that you went and trudged along and saved and did all of that, $10,000 was, a lot of money. You really didn't want to go give it to a broker and pay him a bunch of fees to do it with. It was just totally different than what it is today. Today, you can kind of go out there with a smartphone and a bank account and you can be in the stock market. It is so much easier for kids to be invested today than what it was during our time. I'll go over some of these bullet points here in a second, but one thing I encourage you to do if you're young and starting out, is come up with a plan, regardless of if that's going to be your final plan. At least establish some kind of plan and start working to that plan. Tara and I's plan right now, and I'm going to try to share a lot of these examples with you. Ours is, we've got a retirement plan. We want to retire at 65, and we spoke to a financial advisor through our work, and you give them all of your information, and they say, here's how much we spend, here's how much we think we want to spend in retirement, and we don't want to change not one thing about what we do when we retire. Maintain the same spending levels, the whole 9 yards, and then they gotta go through this thing and they tell you, okay, if that's what you want, here's the kind of money that you're going to need in retirement. So we're on track with that. And, retiring for that doesn't mean that we're going to quit work, but we may decide that we don't want to do our current job and want to do something else. So kind of going through a couple of things, and when I'm using this pointer, I'm always going to point to this screen, and I get a little nervous, so it might be a little shaky. So just bear. Like I said, everything is in these folders. This first part of this thing, trust me, it's going to be kind of boring. Because I don't know what everybody's level of investment knowledge is. So I'm going to go over a lot of terms and a lot of things like that. And the real exciting part's going to get toward the end. Trust me. So we covered the part at the beginning, like very little education on it. And it's not complicated in my view. I kind of tend to make some things a little bit more simpler than what they are, but we really need to be educating our kids about this, early. Second part is we have become a society that basically you spend everything that you make and then some. And like these are some statistics we pulled back, say from March of 25, I think we had $1.18 trillion worth of credit card debt. That is the worst kind of debt that we can have. We'll go through it in here, but that is the one that needs to be avoided at all costs. So in 2024, this is consumer bankruptcies, not business bankruptcies, but there were 478,000 consumer bankruptcies in the U.S. So it's really just back to that thing, as people are living beyond their means. And kind of folks going down to retirement, nearly 56% of Americans report having no solid financial plan for retirement. And like I said, you can be 18 years old. You don't know what your income's going to be when you get to 65, but you can be 18 years old and you can say, I want to have $1 million. So what's it going to take me to have $1 million by the time I'm 18? And I'm going to show you it is very easy to do. Kind of going through Social Security, and I'm going to call this AKA, this is the biggest Ponzi scheme that there is in the world. This is not a thing on the government, but you basically, Social Security is you take 6.5% of your salary, your company matches 6.5% of your salary, and they take all this money. The government really just does nothing with it but kind of set it over to the side. And then when you get 65 years of age, they start writing you a check if you decide that you're going to retire there. And it is nowhere near the funds that if you took that same amount of money and you invested it yourself that you would be able to have when you get going down the road. As a matter of fact, you could take, if the day that you were born and the government said, here, I'm going to open you up a Roth IRA and I'm going to max it out and give you $7,000 that day, you'll be a multimillionaire by the time you're 65. If the day that you were born, if the government would write you a check, say $7,000, and would let you invest that in a Roth IRA tied to the S&P 500, by the time you turn 65, you'd be a multimillionaire. And I'll show another example of this, but if in comparison, Social Security, if you made $50,000 a year and your employers matched the Social Security contributions together, you would have about $250,000 that between you and your employer would put into Social Security. And the most you would get, if you live 20 years, you would double that amount. So basically $250,000, and you might get $500 if you lived for 20 years. The thing is, this is not going to start until you're at least 62 today. So you cannot rely on the government to support you with Social Security. You need to be figuring out a way to handle it outside of that. Because some things that are kind of what they're talking about in terms of changes. Right now, the full retirement age is 70 years old, is 67 for everybody. There's a lot of talk about that retirement age moving up to 70. So, and it's going to happen. They're going to change it, and there's a lot of, I don't think Social Security is going to go away, but some changes are going to happen. Reason I'm calling it a Ponzi scheme is the people where Social Security funds come from today are not from the money that you put into there. It's the money that people are paying today. And the version I've always heard is by 2035 it's going to be out of money, and that's not the case. It just means by 2035 the funds that are going into Social Security are going to be less than what they're paying out every year. So they're going to have to either decide to cut benefits, raise the amount of taxes that they're getting, raise the retirement age to try to keep people from getting on it. But here again, I hope anybody that's got Social Security, I'm glad, I hope you get it to the day you die, but do not count on it. Kind of the next thing, retirement balances. And this is current retirement balances by certain age groups. And And I've gone back and looked at this, and if you just want to kind of point out the 25 to 34 age group category, you know, the average is 30, the median is 14. To me, that median number is the more important number, because there are some people that are real heavy savers that drive that number up. There are some people, the median is the one that's right in the middle, so that's where most of the people are at. I went back and looked at some research on that, the $14,000. If you have $14,000 when you're 25 years old, that money will double multiple times before you get to 65 if you keep it invested. But what I've seen is that number right there is not growing, the 65 plus. So what that's saying is people are taking money out of their retirement and using it for some other things and not keeping it in there and growing it. And one thing, there's some reasons you can take it out, but once you establish this plan for retirement, you do not need to mess with it. You lose all of that compounding interest that you're gonna get through. Questions on it so far? Just some, yeah.
I heard one time, and maybe you've done more research than I have, but they were saying every dollar you invest in your 20s is equivalent to roughly like $80.
Well,
By the time you're 65, you might be getting.
well, I'm gonna show you something to that, and it's pretty phenomenal. And yeah, no, that's fine. That's a very, very good question. It's something we absolutely gonna talk about. But kind of, you know, some of the things that they're saying from why they're going to raise the retirement age and that sort of thing. Life expectancy in the U.S. for men, 75.8 years. For women, it's 81.1. So the thing is, though, when you get to 65, if you make it to 65, that changes. So if you get to 65, the average man is 83 and women is 86. So if you think about that, from when you get to 65, if you've made it there, you know, Lord only knows, but you've got to plan for another 20 years once you hit 65. Anything less than that, you are likely going to run out of money. And just, I don't have this in the charts anywhere, but just some kind of few little guides. You know, retirement income level that you need to have. When you're 30, you need to have 1x times your salary. When you're 40, 3x times your salary. And this is both. This, if you're married, both of you in a retirement account. By the time you're 50, you need to have 6 times your salary. 60 is 8 times. And when you're 67, you need to have 10 times your salary when you get ready to go into retirement. And I'm hoping I'm going to show you how to get to where you have that before you ever get to 62. So. All right. A couple of little terms. Again, don't know what everybody's knowledge level is. Compounding. Whoops, what did I do? There we go. Compounding. That's the 8th wonder of the world. If you don't pick up on any other thing in here, we need to really understand what compounding is. And what it is the value of your earnings growing exponentially because you've got it invested in a certain way over a certain period of time. So compounding, if you're young, that is your friend. Wished I woulda. I have got all kinds of things through my life that I wished I would have done differently when it comes to finances. Again, if I'd been exposed to this earlier and somebody could have shown me this, you know, how all this works, I'd be talking to you today from a retired perspective and doing stuff that I wanted to do rather than being tied to an employer. I have no doubt in my mind if I'd have started this sooner, I'd be much further along than where we are today. Mutual fund. Basically, I'm going to kind of lump two things, a mutual fund and an ETF. They're the same thing. The big difference, a mutual fund is a collection of stocks where you get to diversify your portfolio. Keeps you from really going to buy one stock here and one stock there and hope that that thing is going to grow. A mutual fund it's a collection of stocks. Usually they tie it to an index, S&P 500. I'll talk about that a lot. You can get mutual funds tied to the overall stock market. You can get them tied to the smaller companies in the world. It's called the Russell 2000. You can get them tied to bonds, all kind of different things. There are thousands of mutual funds that you can pick from to invest in. An ETF is the exact same thing. The key difference, if you go looking at a stock symbol, a mutual fund ends in an X. It's usually 4 or 5 digits. It ends in an X. That's always going to be a mutual fund. An ETF is the same thing, but it's a stock symbol. No real characteristics on it, but the main difference between the two, the mutual fund, at the end of the day, you get the price what the mutual fund when the market closes. The ETF is traded just like a stock. You can buy it all during the day when the market's open, and you get it for whatever price that you picked at that time. But they're essentially the same thing. It just depends on what your preference is. So, the stock market, I mean, that is the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, the Dow Jones. You know, there's all the different things to get intermingled in with the stock market. But the stock market is basically where they trade these stocks and mutual funds. That's really all it is. The New York Stock Exchange, that's Wall Street. NASDAQ, that is again, it's a stock exchange, but it's really where mainly where all the technology stocks are traded. I mean, there's some other things that are traded on that market, but it's primarily where the tech heavy stocks are. Apple, Google, Tesla, those kind of companies. A brokerage account, that is just a bank account. It's no different than if you walk down to Gulf Winds and opens you up a bank account. It's the same thing, but it's a place where you trade stocks. A lot of people don't know this, but you can buy CDs, you can buy government bonds, you can do all of that stuff right there within a brokerage account. And more than likely, you can buy those stuff like a CD. You can get a better rate through your broker than you can walking up to the bank, because the bank is just going to be buying it from these guys, and they're going to cut their part out of it and get their percentage off of you. So, S&P 500. This to me is the survivor of the stock market. And it's to me, being invested in the stock market, it is still one of the best avenues to measure. Because what that is the top 500 companies in the U.S. And if somebody doesn't perform, they get kicked off, somebody else comes right back in on them. So for example, Discover just got kicked out. They're out of the S&P 500, and a group called Coinbase has come in and take their spot. So they're the best companies. It's the stuff that, I mean, like I said, this is what most people pay attention to. The Dow, and if you look at the Dow Jones, you see that. You do see on there, it's like 42,000, 43,000. You would think that's bigger. Well, it's not. There's 30 companies in the Dow, and it's just an index that's grown over time to just try to measure how the stock market's doing. And along with compounding, make sure you know what Rule of 72 is. Rule of 72 basically is very simple. If you ever want to figure out how fast your money's going to double, you take your return rate. So if you're getting 10% per year as an average return, divide that number into 72, and that will tell you how often your money will double. So if you're getting 10% annual return, your money's going to double every 7.2 years. So that's just a real quick, easy math, so you don't have to figure this thing out through a big, long spreadsheet, that sort of deal. But it's a very quick rule to figure out how long your money's going to double. Questions? This next sheet, I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on it. It's just something that Tara and I found on the internet. It's just some real quick rules. It's a little quick cheat sheet. The one I will say is this first one. I've got a modified rule with that. I mean, it's just my version. You do however you look at it. And what usually happens is 50, 30, 20 rule. And what that means is you take 50% of your income, and that goes towards your needs. The 30% goes to other things like your wants, and the 20% are your goals. To me, that is backwards, where what I say you start with there is 50, 25, 25. And that first 25% needs to be your tithe and your savings. So you get that figured out. Then you take your wants and your needs and you work with what you have left to deal with that. What most people you find do is they try to go to this 50, 30, 20 rule, and they find out that they've got too much in that 50% that they're trying to squeeze into it. But to me, you've got to start with that, live off of no more than 75% of your total income. And that needs to be your baseline. That's kind of the way that we're doing it, the way we try to do it. And if you get where you have to start cutting out, you have to make decisions. Do you cut out some of your needs that you quote think you need, or do you cut out some of your savings? But if you start with that 25% on the savings and work your way into the other, you should be a pretty safe bet. And if you plan to live month to month, I promise you, you're going to fail. Something's going to happen. You're going to have a flat tire. You're going to have, your light bill's going to be more than what you planned on. But if you already got your plans to live month to month, you're going to have to go in and figure out some way to get it, like borrow it or, whatever. But just the thing is do not plan to live month to month. So, get into some of the fun stuff. So this is the one I broke Tara. Absolutely destroyed her. So how much does that brown sugar oat milk shake and espresso extra pump brown sugar cost? So it is, I don't know if she told me the truth because I don't buy this stuff, but I asked Cecily and she said it cost me $7.50. Well, let me tell you what it really cost you. If that 1 cup of coffee, back to this compounding, back to 10%, will end up costing you about $660 over the course of your 65 years old. So it costs you more than what you think it costs you in the long run. So take an example. If you're 18 years old, and you said, okay, for the next 20 years, I'm going to buy 1 cup of coffee per week. And I'm going to do that I got Starbucks. It doesn't have to be Starbucks. So that's basically, if you invested at $375, just 1 cup of coffee every week, $375, once a week for 20 years, it costs you $21,500, actually money out of your pocket. If you take that same amount of money, invested it into an index fund in the S&P 500, it's $309,000, and that's if you stopped when you got 20 years old. If you invested that money from the year 18 for 20 years, so basically from 18 to 38, you bought 1 cup of coffee a week. It's going to cost you $21,500 over that period if they don't go up in the price. So, but that money that you spent on that coffee, if you had invested it in your retirement, $309,000. And I'm not advocating everybody take out all their fun stuff. You got to work and you got to live. But the point of this is to recognize what it costs you. I hear a lot of people, they don't have money in their budget to put toward retirement. And you kind of go through there and dig through it a little bit. You can find some money that's in there. So, like I said, this is the one that broke Tara. She thinks about everything. Anytime we talk now, she kind of makes a lighthearted joke of, that's going to be like $3,000. So, here's my next one. I don't know if there's many car buffs in here, but this is the one where, to me, I see posts on social media, see folks talking about it, and again, I'm not begrudging anybody buying a new car. Tara and I, after going through this, we kind of looked and back to these wished I would-haves. There's been 12 times since me and Tara's been married that we have bought a new car in some shape, form, or fashion between the time that we got married till now. So I sure wish I would have took that money and invested it rather than doing what we did. But, so back to these two cars. Looked down, they're both kind of got one the sports car for whoever likes sports cars, and the family car for the big Tahoe Denali. Both of them cost about $83,000, and that is some high class problems in terms of a car. And if you were to finance that at 6.2% for 84 months, your car payment, this is car payment, not insurance, but car payment's going to be $1,224 a month. So basically what's going to happen, you're going to have paid through 84 months, you're going to pay $103,000 for that car. And then when you're done with it, that car is going to be worth $38,000. So you just took out $100 and something thousand and you ended up with 38. Now, this is an extreme example, but you'll find that you could take any car out there. It could be a $20,000 car that you bought when you bought it new and it depreciated out. They're going to lose about 60% of their value over the first 7 or 8 years. So it's just a thing of investing in depreciating assets. So the other thing, and I want to show this chart right here. If you took that same money, you didn't buy that car, you went and bought something used because you determined you had the money to go buy the car. You took that $1,200 and you see it right here. You see how it kind of goes up from year 1 to 7. You're investing that money into the S&P 500. If you put that money in there for those 7 years, stopped, didn't do another thing, never bought that car, you took that money and just left it alone, never touched it again, by the time you were 65, you'd have $2 million. So it is extraordinary how that compounding works. And it.
You said you only done that for 7 years and stopped. Right?
7 years and stopped. Not invested another nickel. At the end of 35, when you turn, well, I got it at 35 years. It'd be worth $2 million. And I can show you, I'm not going to have my computer, but I can show you some things where, I've always heard this, yeah, that's not really, I don't believe that. I actually took the returns for the S&P 500 with reinvesting dividends and just to try to prove out whether these numbers were real. And I can tell you it's uncanny how close it actually is. If you start off with a certain amount of money and you take those returns and you compound them over that period of time, just how close it comes out. So, lesson here, buy used, buy what you can afford, invest what you can. So this is kind of a good example of this is in your chart too. So it's kind of the same thing. If Sam buys an $80,000 car for 72 months at 8% with $10,000 down, pays $1,227 a month. When it's all over, Sam has an old car. Sarah does the same thing, and when instead of buying a new car and invest it, she's got $124,000 and an old car. So there again, just new cars. I love them. I love getting in them and smelling the new smell on them. But man, that's one of the areas, if I really had to do it over again, I would have invested in something totally different. Gone back in time. They are a means to get to an end. That's all they are. So, who wants to be a millionaire? Everybody. Okay. So the keys. I haven't jumped out of them. Kind of give you a couple of quotes. One of them was, this is from Dave Ramsey that he got from somebody, the Brookings Institute. And basically what he's saying is, you have a 97% chance to stay out of poverty and be in the middle class or upper middle class if you do these things and you do them in order. And that is, get your education, get a job, get married, and have children. In that order. Don't do any of them in any other way, but if you do them in that order, you got a 97% chance of staying out of poverty. So if you can go through that process, then you're well ahead of the game. So now let's get into, this is a Sawyer and Cecily example. Sawyer came to this class, boy, he took it to heart, really, really paid attention. So between, how old do you start now? 18. Well, you've got a few more, you got school. But when you get 21, you start putting $2,400 a year into your retirement account. And you do that for till you turn 29, 30. You basically will have spent $21,000. And if you left that alone, you stop investing in your retirement, you say, I've got enough, I'm going to be able to do with what that's going to gain. By the end of that, when you turn 65, you'd have $1 million. Cecily, on the other hand, likes her coffee. So she waited till she turned 30. And then she said she's going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do $2,400 a year, excuse me. Wish she had $2,400 a month. But I'm going to do the exact same thing. And I'm going to go to the same time. I'm going to go from age 30 to age 65 doing $2,400 a year. She never catches Sawyer. And she will have spent $86,000. And if she keeps going, she never catches. Because she's run out of time. 10 years. And I'm going to show you some even more when we get to talking about baby children. It's even way more than that. But the power of starting early is huge. And it's a personal example. Through my working career, when I got started, the mentality and what I'd always said was, I'm young, I still got plenty of time to worry about that. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, had I wished I'd known. So, I mean, you just do some minor things when you're young, and it can make a huge difference when you get older. So, this is that compounding thing that we were talking about on the next slide. And it kind of shows you the multiplier. I'm going to show you an example here in a minute where if you got kids in this age group, something that you're going to need to really be able to do that'll have a tremendous impact. But basically what this is using that 10% return that the S&P 500 has done. And basically what it says, if you start the day you're born investing in something, now you can't do that when you're a baby, but you can with your parents. But if you start the day that you're born and you invested $1,000, didn't do anything else, by the time you hit 65, that $1,000 would be worth $539,000.
That's $1,000 a year?
No, that's $1,000. $1,000, period. One time. But the key is they have to wait a full 65 years. Now, this other thing, and we're going to I can show you how to get that tax-free. So if you had a 401k and you dropped $1,000 in it, which you can't get at that age, but you have to pay taxes on it when you start drawing it out. But there is a way, and I'm going to show you how to do it, that you can do it 100% tax-free. And you see the difference here. You go from, just see how far it drops from 0 to 5. It from 539 to 300, and you see it progressively gets worse. So me, I'm right here. No matter, we're trying to go for retirement, and Tara and I's savings plan, everything that we can put extra is going into retirement. It's not going to go buy the next car or to do something like that. We're probably going to be driving our cars that we got until we retire and then figure out something else. But you can see the power of time, and if the sooner you start this process, the better off you are. As a common theme over and over and over again. So let's see here. Any questions? Yeah, it truly is amazing. So, kind of how you go to this thing to be, if you want to become a millionaire, your biggest asset that you've got, or there's two, the biggest asset you got, and this is really only people that are W-2, I'm not talking about people that are investing in their own businesses. There's other ways that you can invest in things, but this is people where you've got an income. Your income is your single biggest thing that you've got to build wealth. Your income and your and time, which you can see from earlier. So if you are living off of less than what you make, then you've got some income that you can put toward growing your wealth. Stay out of debt. Any debt. You know, I don't want to, the Dave Ramsey approach to this, you know, there's basically, if you got debt that's over 7%, you really need to be working on trying to get out of that. Now, I'm not talking about your house. There's not too many people that's going to be able to afford to buy a house in cash. But if you've got credit card debt, you really need to work on that to get that eliminated. Kind of some of the studies we've come up there was of the people who hold credit card debt, the average in the U.S. is about $7,000. And if you're carrying $7,000 worth of debt, there's $1,000 a year that's going out of your wealth, going to a credit card company. So my advice there, do everything you can do to get rid of that. Get another job, sell something, get rid of that debt because it is a destroyer of wealth. Minimize investing in depreciating assets, new cars, new boats, ATVs, anything that's just totally not necessary. Eliminate wasteful spending. Back to my Starbucks thing. Now, I will point out too, I keep telling everybody about the S&P 500. If everybody quit buying Starbucks, if everybody quit buying new cars, the S&P 500 would not be that good. All I'm saying is I want everybody in this room to quit investing in that stuff. So, or anybody that's watching. Kind of going back to the credit card debt thing. Dave Ramsey's got Dave Ramsey's method to that, and it's what he's called the debt snowball. And I don't know if y'all have heard of what that is, but what that is taking the smallest debt, eliminate it first, take the money from that debt, go to the next one, wipe it out, and just work your way up. That's good if you've got to have that reimbursement. You know, something's got to make you feel good about doing it. I prefer what's called the avalanche method. It's the cheaper method. It gets you there quicker, but you have to be disciplined. And what the avalanche method is take the highest interest rate first, no matter the balance. And you work on that one. You get that one down. Do everything you can do to tackle that. There's other things you can do. It's a different kind of a debt, but credit unions and stuff like that, sometimes they offer personal loans that are that are lower than credit card debt. So if you can go replace 24% debt with 10% debt, then you need to do that. But don't go do that and then start racking back up 24% debt. You got to change that behavior. So, you know, but it's a lot easier to work off 10% debt than it is 24%. Another one that's really not here, if you're going to buy a car, save up the money, put 20% down. If you're going to buy a house, save up the money, put 20% down. And where that one's key, there's this useless piece of insurance that you have to buy if you don't have your house paid at 80%. It's called PMI insurance. And it does absolutely nothing for you. It is an insurance for the bank. And what they're doing is they're making you pay for insurance that they have to keep them from losing money if you default on the loan. So it's a total waste of money. If you can save up the 20%, save up the 20% and get it. And by law, when you have a mortgage, if you got a 30-year mortgage, when you get it down to 78%, that PMI insurance comes off. I mean, it's a kind of a small thing, but average houses today are $300,000. It's $300 to $400 a month. So it's a lot of money. So, this kind of is the different accounts that, to me, I think everybody needs to have. Checking account, savings account. In your savings account, minimum emergency fund of $1,000. My only caveat to that, if you got credit card debt, that's your emergency. I mean, Dave Ramsey will tell you to get that $1,000 in an emergency fund, but if you have credit card debt, get that paid off. Then put this $1,000 in your emergency fund. Because that credit card debt is, I mean, like I said, that was a year. 1 year worth of interest rate. That if you got $6,000, you're just better off, to me, getting those paid off. Your tax deferred accounts, that's your 401k, 403b, 529 plan. Highlight that 529 plan, especially if you got children, or if you got grandchildren, or you're going to have grandchildren. Highlight that plan. HSA. If you have an employer-sponsored HSA, you absolutely need to get that. Do some research on it before you do, but that is a triple tax advantaged account. If you're a little older, it's a little bit more risky, but if you are young, don't have a lot of health problems, my advice to you is get an HSA. The taxes on it are pre-tax, so it just takes off your income. It grows tax-free. You can make decisions on how you invest it, and as long as you use it for medical expenses, it's the money's tax-free. And there's also a little trick to that. If you go to the doctor, you've got this HSA and you're building this savings up. If you go to the doctor and you got money saved up in your HSA, you can decide, hey, I'm going to pay that. I've got the money, and I'm not living month to month. I've got the extra money to pay it. Keep your receipt. When you get 65, as long as you got those receipts and you got documentation, you can use that money and pull it out of your account just as if your retirement funds. It is completely tax-free. But that is a very powerful thing if you are young. You know, most insurance companies today are like, you know, you pay a premium, $200-300 a month, it's gone. This is you're having a chance to save it for yourself. It's also called a high deductible plan. There's some challenges with it. Basically what it means is you're going to pay more money out of your pocket, but you get to build it up over the long haul. Roth IRA, highlight that one too. And a Roth 401k, usually when you see Roth, all that means is that is after-tax contributions. When you see 401k, 403b, 457, that is before taxes. That lowers your taxable income. And then taxable brokerage account. So, in case we don't get to it, kind of run out of time. Tell you what, let's just, I'll try to run through it real quick. In terms of a brokerage account, these are different places where you can go to set up a brokerage account. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, Robinhood, they all have them. I use Fidelity. You're going to do your research, look at all of them, see which one you go, but I advise you to go and open yourself up a brokerage account. It's not hard. You open it up, you send some money to it, and then you just start investing the money. But to me, like I said, I've ended up with Fidelity. And here's kind of the steps really of what you do is you choose your brokerage, you create your account, you link a bank account, you fund it. And they got some pretty intuitive steps to go through there and do it. You choose a stock, ETF, CD, whatever, and you buy it. And then presto, you bought your first stock. So really, and trust me, if anybody's got any questions on it, please call me, text me. I'll try to help you walk through it. I'm gonna kind of skip over because I don't want to run. I did want to get to. I'll tell you what this is. This was back to my 75% trying to learn how to live. This is basically somebody looking at a $40,000 a year job. Tithes $4,000, 401k, $2,400 HSA. But anyway, it's just an example of, you know, if you were to basically this HSA and your 401k. I was kind of going through here and said if you had, you know, you had to use $1,700 a year off of your HSA. and you invested that $2,400 a year, that's how much money you would have at 65. Okay.
What age is this starting at?
That was starting at 21 years old. All right. This is the good one. This is one I think y'all would be the most interested in if you got kids. Today, when you go home, as second you can, if you've got kids or if you got grandkids, you want to talk to their parents, whatever, you need to set up a 529 plan. Now, you can do that through Fidelity, or you can do it through like if you're from Alabama, you can do it through the college counts thing from Alabama. The pluses and minuses for that. The college counts thing from Alabama is if you use that one, you can deduct the contributions off of your state taxes. The downside of that is I've looked through there. I don't understand the investment strategy on there. And to me, if I can't understand it, I don't want to use it as an investment tool. But make up your own mind on how you want to do that. But you absolutely, if you got a kid between day one, from the day they're born, you need to have that account set up. And the reason being, and you also want to set up a custodial Roth, not a custodial 529. You want that to be in the parent's name, and you want the child to be the beneficiary. Because what you can do, and it's just changed with the law just a couple years ago. So if you take, and I've got these backwards, but the math still works out if you do it. If you take a 529 plan and you do $2,500 per year, you just invest that from the time for however long, all the way up till they're 18. But you can also, this Roth contribution, if you've got somebody, only requirement for a Roth is they have to have income. It can be babysitting, it can be whatever. I'm going to use Lennox as an example here. Lennox can be modeling for iFixit, and as long as y'all agree to pay her, she can contribute that amount of money into a Roth IRA up to $7,000. So the example I'm using right here is $2,500 a year. So you invest $2,500 a year into a Roth between the ages of 2 and 5, or that can be 529, but basically I'm saying $2,500 a year by the time from age 2 to 18 in an S&P 500. And let's just say now Lennox gets to be 18, she's not going to go to school. The way the law works now is you can convert $7,000 a year up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA. So you build all that money up in a 529 plan and decide what they're going to do when they go to school. If they decide they're not going to go to school, they're just going to go to work right out of high school, and you do that conversion, you take $35,000 out of that account and teach Lennox, hey, don't touch it, don't mess with it. This is yours when you get ready to retire. At 65 years old, she will have $5.9 million tax-free. The kicker to that is, and I'm telling you to go home and do it today, the account has got to be 15 years old. So you want the clock to start ticking. So you create the account, put $20 in it if you're not ready to go, but create the account, put some money in it, and let the clock start going. When she gets 18, you can decide what you want to do. And the important thing with being on where you're the owner and she's the beneficiary, you can change the beneficiary. If you do whatever you want to with that money, you can change yourself to that beneficiary and take those $7,000 and put it into your own Roth if you want to. So the other part to that, if you go through that whole example, by the time they turn 19, you take that $35,000 out. From that, you would have some kind of money left over that if you wanted to have a wedding or buy them a car or do something like that if they weren't going to go to school. But in that case, you have to pay a penalty. It's a 10% penalty on the gains. but still, that's a small price to pay for potentially that. And the reason you want to try to manipulate this thing where you get it in tax-free, we'll kind of scoot over here real quick. This is tax brackets the way they are in the U.S. today. This is kind of boring stuff, but it's important. When I was growing up and we first got started, pour all the money you can into your 401k. Do everything that you can do. And if you're young, it's kind of a mistake. If you're making enough money to keep you in here, this 12% tax bracket, my advice to you is to start off with a Roth. You put in those pre-tax contributions. If you're making $20,000 a year starting off, you're not paying any federal income tax anyway. So you want to put what you can into a Roth. But you want to kind of stay right here. This is where most people in the U.S. are. They're in this 12% marginal tax bracket. Trying to lose my train of thought here a second. So if you dump all your money into a 401k like we're talking about and you're very successful with it, and you go and you have $5.9 million in your retirement account, well, Uncle Sam's going to call one day wanting his money. And what's going to happen, the way they're doing this, if you don't know what an RMD is, it's called a required minimum distribution. And basically what that means is today's world, when you're 73 years old, if you haven't taken any money out of that account, the government's going to force you to. And they do it by a factor. The first factor is 26. So we'll go through that example that we had a while ago. If we had 5.9 million, I mean, Lord, I hope we all have that. So your income, if you had it in a 401k, is going to be $226,000 for that year. So that's going to throw you right there. So the required minimum distribution is a formula based on your age. The very first year when you turn 73 is 26. So you take whatever's in your 401k, divide it by 26. And that's how much money they're going to require you to take out. The first year. It gets more as you go. So if you got your investment going and it's still growing, that contribution is going to keep growing.
So they can get their percent.
They are going to get their money. So what you want to have is some kind of a ratio of where it makes sense to you to contribute to a Roth, where it makes sense. Because I mean, you're paying taxes on it today rather than paying taxes on it in the future when you're going to be in a much higher tax bracket if you build this huge nest egg up. I mean, it's high-class problems, but I don't want to give the government any more money than what they're already getting. And the other thing that's kind of, this for us older folks, this no tax on Social Security. I know y'all have heard everybody talking about that. If you don't have a 401k or any kind of alternate income, you don't pay taxes on Social Security today. Where you end up paying taxes on Social Security is when you have retirement income. You have other income that comes in to supplement that. So if that no tax on Social Security passes, that is huge for us who've got 401k balances. Because what you want to try to do then, or at least what I'm trying to do with it in my own personal thing, is I'm trying to avoid this tax bracket right here at all cost. So what my plan is I'm going to figure out what my Social Security funds are. I'm going to pull out just enough out of my 401k to get me to that level. And if I got anything else I need, come out of my Roth, which is tax-free. So you want to avoid those next stepping stones. Now this is today. If they don't pass that law that's coming in, all of these tax rates are going up. Questions?
What, like say you was gonna, contribute 20% to your 401k, traditional and Roth, how would you suggest a 30-year-old breaking that up? 12 and 8, 15, 5?
It depends on what tax bracket you're in, and whether or not, because I mean the key is if you have a 401k, my recommendation on a 401k is you need to do that amount what the company is going to match to you. The rest of it just really depends on what your threshold is for your own tax strategy right now. Because keep in mind, anything that you contribute into that 401k, you are going to get taxed on today. But I wouldn't really be able to know a percentage. You just have to kind of work through what fits for y'all.
Well, like the traditional versus Roth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you say like 10% and 10%?
Well,
Just depends?
what I'd be trying to do if I were younger now, I'd be trying to maximize the Roth contributions that you can at $7,000 is what you can put in it. You want to make sure you do up to what your company's going to match. So you do that. Anything that's left over, whether it's Roth or some other kind of savings, just depends. I mean, I don't know what people can afford to do because, you know, when you're young, we've sat there and talked about all kind of different things that they need to save for. You need to save for retirement. You need to save for a car. You need to save for a house. I mean, you got to pick and choose which ones that you want to save for. But to me personally, in my 30s, I'm maxing out my 401k to what the company's going to match, and then I'm putting up to $7,000 or whatever I'm capable of in the Roth. I'm doing that today, and it's a little bit too late. I just started my Roth account, last year, so I'm trying to max out that Roth right now because I want to have that ability to lower me right here. Another thing with it too is you want to look at your portfolio when you get it and constantly readjust it. If you see that you're building up more funds in your 401k, and you want to reduce that, then play around with the numbers. But keep in mind, know what that RMD thing is, and there's a table. It's just called an RMD table. You can Google it. Now, the one good thing is that's going to move up. Today it's 73. It's going to move up to 75. So you can delay it as long as you can. And there's some other things you can do too, and I don't want to tell anybody about this because I really don't know, but you can do Roth conversions when your income is low. You can take money out of your 401k, convert it over to a Roth, but you have to pay the taxes on it. So. All right, questions? This is kind of the last one really want to talk about. I've had, this is back from my days growing up. People always told you don't get into the stock market. It's going to crash. I lost everything. Okay, yeah, could be, but you know, not knowing what your situation is. If you follow the news, you're always going to see things that happen in the stock market. If it bleeds, it leads. So what I wanted to kind of highlight here, September 11th. Now remember all that, how bad that was. And now this was kind of a bad year between 2000 and 2004. The financial crisis, 2008, COVID, inflation, the tariffs. The people who stayed in the market, stayed invested, stayed to your strategy. If you sold right here, you missed out on all of that right there. So pick your strategy, stick with it. If you get closer to retirement and you want to adjust that, adjust it, but don't react to news cycles. I cannot tell you how many times I have tried to talk Tara down off of a cliff when something goes on. Oh, we need to sell our stuff. We're not worried about it right now. You know, at the end of the day, if I have to work another couple of years, so be it. That's just what it is. But stick to your strategy. So you go through all of that. When you finally pay off all your debts, you can enjoy your youth. Kind of a couple other things. I got a lot of information off TikTok here. These guys right here, if you're on TikTok, they are some very good sources for, it's little 60-second videos, but they are very good. I trust a lot of what these guys are saying, so go look at them. The color didn't show up, well, it did show up here, These are some different mutual funds. The ones that are in red, that's the ones I'm personally invested in. This one right here, Fidelity Fidelity 500, that's a low-cost index fund. Is averaged 10% over since its lifespan. It's had some bad years, but at the end of the day, it's still been over 10%. If you're scared of the stock market, just that S&P 500, and you think a recession's going to come, there's one. Let's see here. Let me find it. Oh yeah, right here. This one is the ones that are, I won't call them recession proof, but they're more recession stable. That's Walmart, Costco. That's when people run out of money and not going to the luxury brands. They're going to those stores to buy their goods. That one is probably about 8% per year. But these were everyone that's on this page are the top funds. Like mine right now, at 56 years old, 100% of my investments right now are going into that. FXAIX. That's me. But I'm looking at this, I got 10 more years that we're talking about retiring. As we get closer to that, you'll start trying to taper off your portfolio. You can adjust it. Like I said, there's mutual funds that are tied to bonds, all kinds of different things that you can adjust down. But when you get to the point where you're going to retire, a lot of people will go by this 4% rule. Now, basically, you take your money that you got, 4%. You take that 4%, that's what you can withdraw safely with never run out of money. Now, the only caveat to that is you adjust it for inflation every year. So to really ensure you never run out of money, you need that money earning about 4.5% to keep you from running out. So, your idea is, for us, we're not going to be living off of just that. We're going to have Social Security and this income. So, but that's the thought process. That's where most people use that 4% rule. I know I ran through all that real quick, but trust me, please, if you have a question, text me, email me. I will be happy to answer what I can answer. Back in the very back, there's all these different accounts we talked about. I tried to put as much criteria in there about what the rules of them are, and wasn't going to go over them, but you can kind of skim through them real quick to see if you had any questions about them. Did I put y'all to sleep? Uh-huh.
When you open up, thank you for what you shared. That was very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Our team, we meet on Tuesdays, and he's teaching us about the Silver Eagle bullion coins, and he talks a lot about the 2008 recession, and because of what they do with buying the silver coins, they didn't. That when the market did crash in 2008, they actually gained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coins and stuff like that. Now, this is on Tara's side. She's got one of her retirement accounts is in a precious metals kind of thing, and that one has done very well. And it usually what I found in those, when inflation goes up, that's where people run to with their money is gold and silver and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's. I'm not that familiar with them. What we did with Tara, she had moved some money over. She wanted it out of the stock market, so she moved it over there and just kind of parked it. But it's done very well. I mean.
I'll send you the information of the guy, Mr. Aldridge. But my question was, for the brokerage accounts,
Mm-hmm.
what do you need? How much do you need to start one?
I opened my Roth up with $20. And the key there is you open it and you connect a bank to it. And like mine, I don't do anything with it. It's automatic. So I've got X amount of money comes out of my checking account, goes over to my Roth account, and it automatically invests in the funds that I want it to do with. Only thing I have to worry about is I've got the money in the bank account when it does the transfer. but they have all kind of tools to do recurring things with them. So it's really pretty easy to do. Got anything else?
Your next presentation, could you do one on how to talk to your grown kids about your grandkids for that 529? Because I have three daughters and they're in their 30s and 20s, and I'm telling you, I wish we could invest. I tried to get them to invest in their ages, but they're not trying to hear me. But I would like it for my two grandsons that are 9 and my granddaughter that's 20.
Yep.
So if you can do like a cool presentation, I can send to them.
I will see if I can do that. And the other thing with the 529, I just want to kind of point out there are no limitations on how much you can contribute to that. You don't have to be the parent either. If it's open, a grandparent can contribute to that 529 thing. And my suggestion there, this is going to probably step on some toes. Birthdays and Christmas, it's all good to go buy them these nice shiny little toys. They are not going to remember that when they get 30 years old. My plan, if we don't have any grandchildren, but if that day comes for birthday and Christmas, they're probably going to get a little cheap toy, but they're probably getting something donated to their 529 or their Roth account. That to me is going to be much better for them in their future than any kind of little $5 toy or what have you from Walmart. So, yep. All right, that is all I have. Ricky, you want to kind of close us with a word of prayer?
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir.
I told you this guy knew what he's talking about. Thank y'all for coming. David, thank you for this. We're gonna do another one next.
Well, no, I man, I have to try to put it together. I think I don't have anything planned right now, but let me try to. I'd like some feedback. I've got that one about the 529. Anything we can do, I love putting this together and talking about it. So I'll put some more slides together and we can put another class together.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Let's close in a word of prayer. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, for David. Lord, thank you for the blessing that he's given us tonight, for the tremendous time and effort and diligence he put into his studies and getting all this together so that we could benefit from it. Just thank you so much for that. And Lord, we thank you, Father, that you've given us the ability to be able to come out tonight and to hear it. We thank you for the terror of being able to watch it, children, and Lord, just ask you to bless his family for their time of giving this to us at no charge, Lord, just because they want us to do well in this area of finances. Help us to be able to listening, to be able to comprehend, to be able to have these notes, go back over them, and Lord, that you just to bless us in the area of our finances. Thank you so much, Lord, for again allowing us to be here tonight. Thank you for every person here. Be with us as we travel, Lord. Keep us safe in this inclement weather. Lord, we ask that you just forgive us these things in Jesus' name. We ask it in his name. In the name of Jesus, everybody said amen. You guys be careful going home.